When a river is forced to flow in two directions at once, it does not bring clarity, it brings flooding. Breaking news from Abuja. This report is dated February 2026. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has sharply condemned the Nigerian Senate's latest amendment to the Electoral Act, warning that the decision to combine electronic and manual transmission of election results is, in his words, a recipe for chaos that could undermine the credibility of future elections. While the Senate insists it has struck a balance between technology and reality, what is now clear is that the debate over how Nigeria counts and transmits votes is far from settled, and the stakes are national. In this video, we will examine Atiku Abubakar's position, explain what the Senate actually amended, outline the reactions from opposition parties and labor groups, and assess why this decision matters for electoral integrity and public trust ahead of 2027. If you believe Nigerians deserve elections that are transparent and beyond dispute, like this video and subscribe to our Rise News. Accountability begins with citizens paying attention. Atiku Abubakar's intervention comes at a sensitive moment. The Senate had, on February 4, 2026, rejected proposals to make real-time electronic transmission of results mandatory, opting instead to retain a framework similar to what existed under the 2022 Electoral Act. That decision triggered protests across the country, with opposition figures, youth groups, and civil society organizations accusing lawmakers of rolling back hard-won electoral reforms. Under mounting public pressure, the Senate reconvened in an emergency plenary session on February 10, 2026, and announced what it described as a compromise. The amended Clause 63 now allows presiding officers at polling units to transmit results electronically after completing Form EC8A, the official results sheet. However, the amendment introduces a critical condition. Where electronic transmission fails, is disrupted by technical glitches, or becomes impossible due to network or connectivity issues, the manually signed Form EC8A becomes the primary and final basis for collation and declaration of results. The Senate also removed the phrase real-time from the bill and retained INEC's discretion to determine the mode of transmission during elections. It is this combination that Atiku has rejected outright. Reacting to the development, Atiku argued that mixing electronic and manual systems does not strengthen elections but weakens them. According to him, real-time electronic transmission is the only credible option capable of ensuring transparency and fairness in Nigeria's elections. He warned that a dual system introduces confusion, creates room for disputes, and undermines the very reforms Nigerians have been demanding since the controversies of past elections. In Atiku's view, elections should not rely on fallback mechanisms that can be triggered under loosely defined circumstances. Atiku went further to frame the Senate's approach as falling short of public expectations. He described the earlier rejection of mandatory real-time electronic transmission as a deliberate assault on electoral transparency and a calculated blow against public trust. Even with the Senate's partial reversal, he insists the new amendment does not go far enough. To him, a conditioned option is not reform, it is hesitation dressed as progress. Beyond criticism, Atiku also issued a political call. He urged opposition parties to unite and pursue mandatory electronic transmission collectively, warning that allowing the issue to rest would serve the interests of the ruling establishment rather than the electorate. Speaking from his current political base as a chieftain of the African Democratic Congress, Atiku stressed that his immediate focus is strengthening opposition structures, not declaring a 2027 presidential ambition. Still, his message was clear. Electoral reform is not a partisan luxury, but a democratic necessity. Atiku is not alone in this position. The People's Democratic Party and the Labour Party have both criticized the Senate's amendment. The Labour Party went as far as describing the rejection of mandatory real-time electronic transmission as a shameful betrayal of Nigerians. The Nigerian Labour Congress has also weighed in, warning of mass action and even a possible boycott of the 2027 elections if real-time electronic transmission is not firmly guaranteed by law. These reactions underscore how deeply this issue cuts across political and social lines. To understand why emotions are running high, it is important to explain the mechanics in plain terms. Electronic transmission allows results to be uploaded from polling units to a central viewing portal, reducing delays and limiting opportunities for interference during physical movement of results sheets. Manual transmission relies on paper forms that are transported from one collation center to another. While manual processes have long been part of Nigeria's elections, they are also the source of many disputes, especially when figures recorded at polling units differ from those eventually announced. Supporters of the Senate amendment argue that Nigeria's infrastructure challenges make an absolute real-time mandate risky. They cite uneven internet coverage, insecurity in some areas, and the possibility of nationwide network disruptions. From this perspective, the manual backup clause is presented as a safety valve to prevent elections from stalling or being invalidated by technical failures. However, critics like Atiku argue that this reasoning misses the point. Their concern is not whether failures can occur, but how they are defined and who decides when they apply. When failure is not clearly and independently verifiable, it becomes a judgment call, and judgment calls in a politically charged environment can be contested, mistrusted, and litigated. For many Nigerians, the fear is that manual fallback provisions weaken confidence in the system rather than strengthen it.
Why does this matter beyond party statements? First, it matters to voters. Elections derive legitimacy not only from legal compliance, but from public confidence. When citizens believe results can be altered between polling units and final declaration, participation drops and cynicism grows. Second, it matters to INEC. By retaining wide discretion for the Commission during operational failures, the Senate has placed enormous pressure on INEC's credibility. Even well-intentioned decisions could be viewed through a lens of suspicion in a climate where trust is already fragile. Third, it matters for national stability. Nigeria's recent history shows that disputed elections often lead to prolonged litigation, protests, and deep social divisions. Electoral clarity is not just about winners and losers, it is about preserving peace and unity in a diverse country. So, what happens next? An effective path forward would require more than legislative amendments. It would involve INEC publishing clear, transparent criteria for what constitutes a genuine electronic transmission failure, how such failures are independently verified, and how manual results are safeguarded against manipulation. It would also require serious investment in technology, redundancy systems, and staff accountability so that electronic transmission becomes the norm rather than the exception. Failure would look very different. Ambiguous standards, inconsistent application, and conflicting explanations on election day would deepen distrust and fuel post-election crises. In that scenario, no side truly wins, and democracy itself pays the price. This brings us to one sharp question Nigerians must consider and debate honestly. Can elections truly be credible when manual results are allowed to override electronic transmission under conditions that remain open to interpretation? As we close, remember this proverb: when the rules are unclear, the powerful always find their way. Electoral reform is not about convenience for institutions, but confidence for citizens. Nigeria's democracy depends on laws that leave little room for doubt and no room for manipulation. Subscribe to Arise News for calm, verified, and independent analysis as this critical national conversation continues.